Hi everyone, TJ again. Alright, so now yesterday we did all the chalk talk. You know, I got all the boring stuff out of the way. Now we're gonna cover. You see here, I already got my tissue cut. All the parts are laid out, so they're kind of out of frame up here. But all the tissue is cut, oversized. All of the wood has been prepped. I don't know if you can see real nice and clearly on the video. Let's try this. Hang on. This is a piece of raw balsa. All right, rough, you can hear it. These pieces, they've all been shaped, radiused, make it look nice and smooth. Some guys like to chamfer their edges, other guys like radii. I like radii just because it feels better. So we had gone through, we sanded the wood, tried to level off some of those mountaintops. We put on 3 coats of dope. That was dope right here. When you're doing the initial coats on the wood, you're going to want to reduce it about 50-50. Some guys like 60-40, 60% thinner to 40% dope. I like starting out 50-50, and then what I'll do, I'll fill the jar up halfway with dope, halfway with thinner. Excuse me. And then I'll brush on my coats. I'll sand it. I'll look at what's in the jar, how much I've used up, and for the next 3 coats, after that first sanding, to get rid of the big mountain tops, fill it up with thinner again. I'll put on the other 3 coats because that extra thinner kind of helps it go down, and dope will melt into itself. Just like you go to any old car, before base coat, clear coat times, back when they were still painted with lacquer, you could put a drop of lacquer thinner on it, it's going to go right through the paint. Dope never really dries. It's not a catalyzed paint like epoxy is. Epoxy's never coming apart unless you sand it or break it apart. So we'd fill that up, did that. This was done after 2 sand outs, luckily. All the parts were good after 2 sets of 3 coats sanding with 320, 2 coats sanding again with 320. Let me get the other piece of wood again. You hear this? Just sounds kind of rough, and it feels rough too. Then this, just it sounds a lot smoother, feels a lot smoother. The whole thing feels nice and smooth. So I know that the whole top of it's flat. I've gotten all those mountain tops off, and so now all there really is are the low spots down underneath where the grain maybe hasn't filled in yet. And that A grain, B grain, C grain wood, if you can see kind of a checkerboard pattern on the elevator, that's what C grain looks like. A grain, B grain wood's gonna look more like the rudder, and you get real long lines instead of a little checkerboard pattern. B grain's kind of in the middle somewhere. Okay, so anyways, now we got to put this stuff on. What's the best way to do this? Well, start with small parts. Get in your groove first. You don't want to rush things. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to coat one side with dope to wake it up, for lack of a better way of putting it. I'm going to spray water on one piece of tissue. I'm going to lift this up, mat it down so it's not soaking wet. It'll be damp, but it's not soaking wet. We'll put it on, stretch it out, apply more dope on top, let it sink down through the tissue into the wood, or not into the wood, into that top layer of dope here. It's kind of like acting like glue to put it together. And then as this dries out, it'll shrink up all nice and tight because the water's evaporating out, and also the dope is pulling it together too and holding it down in place because it doesn't want to move, but it's trying to move, so it's pulling everything together, making it nice and strong. Let's get started here. Double check that your piece is going to fit. You want a little bit of excess. All right. Good. You always got a piece of sandpaper around. Feel your edges. Make sure it feels good because now's the time to fix it. Don't wait until after it's covered to fix something that doesn't feel right. This feels pretty good. So let's get to it. Grab a brush. Fill yourself with dope. This coat doesn't have to be super thick. It doesn't have to completely cover everything. We're just trying to wake things up. Let's brush it on. Your edges, always make sure you get your edges. Don't be afraid of getting a little extra on them. It'll actually pay off in the long run. Help you from breaking through. Get this out of the way. Alright, so that's wet, that's ready. Get our tissue wet. Our spray bottle will work. There we go. As you're spraying it, I mean, if you notice that this tissue was kind of wrinkly beforehand, because it's been sitting in a box forever. It's one of my extra pieces from the last project I did. But as you spray it, all the wrinkles relax. That's a good thing. That's exactly what we want to see. Just get most of the water out of it. Again, it's damp, but it's not soaking wet. Put it on the part. Make sure you're overhanging everywhere that you can. I like to start in the middle, work your way out. Helps you get all the wrinkles out of it and also stretches it while you're doing it. Making sure to get the dope all the way through. You can tell, hopefully you can see it on the camera, that it's also changing colors as it goes through, kind of turns transparent, so maybe changing colors isn't the right way to say it. It becomes more transparent or translucent. Pick it up, work it in with your fingers. Don't be afraid of this stuff. Yeah, it's lacquer. It's not the best stuff in the world for you. If you have allergies to lacquer products or anything like that, try and find a glove that you can wear that will still allow you to do this, and that the thinner won't attack and melt on you. Or find a buddy that'll do it for you. That works too. Keep on going. We're going to apply more. So we can rub it down in there really good. Later on in the painting process, if you start getting bubbles or anything like that in your finish, it's probably because this is lifting up because you didn't glue it down quite far enough. And it's fixable, but you don't want to have to fix things when you're right in the middle of your finishing process. You'd really rather kind of have them already taken care of. So hopefully, after this part, everything's all downhill. We're going to go around the edges, make sure they're glued down. You want to work quick, but you don't have to fly, because if you let one side completely dry out before the other, you run the risk of warping your components. You can always spray more water on them if you need to, or just re-wet the dope that you've already put on. I'm just using my fingers. I'm rolling the edge to make sure it's stuck down nice and good. There we go. Get it down tight around the edges. Remember, again, it might seem like we're putting on a lot right now. After yesterday, I'm sitting there and preaching, wait, don't put so much product on, blah, 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 all that. Well, this is true. However, yesterday, the concern was non-functional weight. And you don't want non-functional weight there. When we're putting this on like this, if you have a little bit extra, we're going to be sanding it in the future. Oh, I'm sorry, I should be doing this lower so you can see it. we want to be, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, functional weight. At least now if we're putting extra stuff on, it's actually doing something, and we're getting an added value to this. As opposed to just layering clear on at the end, trying to bury stuff, where most of that clear really isn't doing anything other than taking up weight and space to try and hide an error lower in your finish. And we're going to be sanding most of this dope off anyways, and following steps. So now, we've got this 1/2 covered. All right, it's all down around the edges. Now we got to trim this up. Yesterday, like I was saying, tissue's nice and easy. We take a piece of sandpaper and we just start dragging it across. This is 320 still. Just start sanding down your edge. And it starts to come off and separate. You're probably going to go through a decent amount of sandpaper on this, because what winds up happening is the dope will actually clog up the sandpaper when it's wet like this. There we go. That's fine. Don't cheap out on sandpaper. Don't be one of those guys where, oh, I only have 2 sheets of sandpaper to sand out my entire plane. It takes as much sandpaper as it takes. It is what it is. Same thing kind of goes for the dope as well. I mean, it takes as much as it takes to make the plane look nice and pretty. Now, as time goes on, you get better at your wood finishing skills. You need less and less dope during the initial phases to cover up errors. You know, you need less filler, and filler accepts dope a little bit differently than the wood does, which can lead to issues down the road with your plane looking pretty. But, I mean, it's just all about taking your time. I mean, don't be in a rush doing this stuff. Once you get the hang of it, it actually goes pretty quick. But don't be sitting there trying to run a marathon before you can even run down the end of your driveway. There we go. It's all separating out nicely. You don't really want to tear it off like that. You want to make sure it's sanded down, because that's also what's providing our nice feathered edge to help melt it down into itself so that you can't feel it. When you're done, it looks and it feels like it's one continuous piece, but it's really not. It's 2 pieces just glued together. There we go. All right. 1/2 of it's covered. So now, like I was saying, we're a little concerned about the possibility of warping our surfaces. You can apply more dope to help with that, or you can also spray it down with water. We'll do the water thing because it's not going to hurt anything, just to show you guys that. There. Yeah, you don't need a lot, just a little. We'll flip it over. Go around all the edges real quick just to make sure they're down and melted in. Going down. There we go. Got all the edges. Run your fingers over them. And you're just helping make sure that everything's nice and smooth down, melted in the way that it should. Okay, that feels pretty freaking good. That's not bad. All right, so now do the same thing over again. Like this, we'll get it wet. Okay, that dope's waking up. Take our tissue. Get it wet. Then you can see the paper starting to relax as soon as you start getting it wet. Just like we talked about yesterday, how it just swells up with the water. Just make sure it's damp. We set it on. Put on some more dope. Now working from the center out. Work out all your wrinkles as you go through it. Oh, stay down. There we go. All right. There we go. All right. One more there. Looks a little dry. That looks like we got it. All right. Same thing. Start motioning it down. Get it in there. And you're stretching the tissue while you do this too. You're getting rid of wrinkles. You're pushing the dope down through the layers. You're pushing paper down through layers of dope too. All in the hopes of getting a really nice, good, tight bond under there. Nothing more depressing than when your nice, pretty finish starts coming up with you after the first couple of flights, and then you gotta go home, you gotta try and repair it, and never repairs out quite as nicely as when it left the factory. Kind of like your car. And that's all down. We'll do the same thing around the edges. I'm hoping that one of these edges isn't really going to want to stick, so I can show you guys how to deal with that. Maybe that'll happen on a different piece. This seems like it's cooperating pretty good. You might notice your thumb might stick to it in a couple of spots, and maybe it wants to lift up a little bit. That's fine. Put down more dope, push it back down where it belongs. There is no mistake so big that you can't fix it still. Let's remember that. Might make more work for you, but you can still fix it. And when we're rolling over both edges like this, what we're also doing is we're double tissuing the edges of the plane, which anything, I don't care what it is, plane, a car, inside of an engine, whatever, sharp edges are no good, and edges also always take all the beating. You don't usually see big errors in the middle of the plane except for handprints, things like that, but hanger rash and all that, and it's always around the edges of the plane. You get dinged up leading edges, trailing edges, wing tips, parts of your rudder, this, that, take it in and out of your stack or off the wall if you hang them. They get beat up. So if you put a little extra material on the edges, it's not the worst thing in the world. Again, functional weight, value added weight. All right, we got all that on. Do the same thing we did on the other side, except we're going to be a little gentle now because we only want to take off this layer of tissue. We don't want to take off the tissue that's underneath. If a little bit goes through, it's not the end of the world. Don't worry about it. Just try to keep it to a minimal. Well, the same thing. Dragging our sandpaper. Check it off and see if you're through yet. See, just like that. It just starts coming apart. I really apologize if for some of these parts that might be going out of frame, things like that. I've got the camera at a really awkward angle to be able to capture the work, but not show you my disaster kitchen, because I'm doing this all in a 2-bedroom apartment, and you don't need big fancy workshops for this stuff. And well, my kitchen doubles as my workshop, and it's a mess. There's all sorts of projects all over the place. I got a racer I'm working on right now, but I really hope the thing screws. If not, it'll at least look cool. I got a Pathfinder, Brodak Pathfinder ARF profile that I'm putting together as a practice plane. As I was informed last year's my first year of actual competition flying. This will only be my 3rd season flying, period. So it's not like I'm an absolute expert on any of this. I'm just showing you what I've found works for me. But anyways, so was informed at FCM at Munsell last year that I'm being bumped up to intermediate for stunt. So as far as experience level, that's where that goes. So I fully admit I know just enough to be dangerous. And if you don't like something I'm doing, you have a different way of doing it, do it. You know, one of the guys you fly was like, you should do it like this or that. And you know, if he's helping you out and it seems to be working, stick with the way that he does it. Get 10 different people, you get 10 different ways of doing everything, and eventually you can average it all out into something that works for you. We got that off, so now we're gonna go ahead and go around all the edges again, melt them down inside of everything, run your fingers over it. Speaking of experience, I've never done videos like this either, so something you don't like, please let me know. Next project, we'll see what we can do about doing it. If there's other things you would like to see, I'm more than happy to try and do anything special that you might want to take a look at. I'm always open to new projects. If you want to see how to build a racer, we could do one of those. We could do stunt ships this winter. I'm talking with a guy who might be working on a scale project, which would be pretty cool, but I don't want to say too much about that in case it doesn't happen. Stunt, I mean, we could do other stunt ships. I've never flown combat, but I mean, I've built a combat ship. I built a Voodoo, but I just can't get the motor to run right to save my life. I don't know what's going on. I think using a Fox 36X in it, not combat special, but the 36X. I think just the way I have my fuel tank set up is messed up in it, and I'm probably just gonna say forget it and go with a bladder on it. But guys fly these for combat as well. It's legal for all sorts of combat. Actually, if you change the shape of the fuse a little bit, you can use it for air-to-air combat, which the Dallas guys kind of cooked up and created. Pretty neat class. And you make a flight streak that looks like an old warbird. But anyways, alright, back to this. Alright, so now, got all the edges rubbed down and everything. What we're going to do now is we're going to put another coat of dope over the whole thing. Give me 1 second, let me get something to support this on. Just that way it doesn't stick to the towel we're using. At this point in your finishing, you should always be working on a towel. Now just help prevent any oopses as far as hard objects getting pushed into your finish and giving you a nice dent or crater. Foam works good too. A lot of guys have big blocks of soft foam that they use, or that kind of egg crate type stuff for your mattress. A lot of guys like that as well. But just something between you and the hard work surface. In this case, my kitchen counter. Edges, always edges, always edges. Oops. Don't be too concerned if you're getting fingerprints and things like that in it. Again, this all gets sanded out in a little bit anyways, so sins can be hidden. Always your edges. Try and keep your coats of dope even numbered from side to side. Again, that's to help prevent warping, so that way you keep your shrinkage the same from side to side, so hopefully it's pulling equally from edge to edge. In a perfect world, that's what happens. Sometimes they warp anyways, and then you gotta play some tricks to get the warps out of them. But we are being optimistic. There we go. Alright, cool. And then there you go, there's one piece done. This was what, maybe 15 minutes worth of work? Now we got other parts to do. Let me get this out of the way. Alright, so that was a fairly simple part. It was nice and straight and got a little curve on the edge, but a very simple part. Let's go one step more complicated. Alright, now we got the elevator. And, well, horizontal stab. We covered the elevator, we're doing the horizontal stab now. It's got a pretty big arc on it. It's not a big deal, this big arc. Again, it's all been prepped. This is all smooth sanded, 320. Dope put on it, 320. Dope put on, 320 again. It's good, it's all nice and smooth. We'll check our edges. Anything that you don't like, fix it now. Right there. That's good. All right. So, more of the same. This is already cut. You can see it's a little bit oversized. Put on your dope. Yeah, waking up what's already on the surface. So it doesn't have to be a super thick coat. It doesn't need super 100% coverage either. Just enough to get everything kind of woken up so we can melt down into it real nice and easy. Edges, again, edges, edges, edges. You don't want an edge lifting on you. And it's not going to start lifting in the middle of a panel typically. I mean, it's always possible, but it's always going to start an edge, especially corners. Any little stress risers that you may have. Alright, that's coated. Tissue relaxes. Oop. Straighten the tissue out. Lay it on. More dope. And starting from the center, working your way out. This you want full coverage on. You know, you don't want to see any little wet or dry spots. Well, I'm sorry, not wet or dry. You want to see wet spots. You don't want to see dry spots. Don't be afraid to get right down on top of it if you need to. Use any lighting that you have, kind of like a candle, lets you know what's going on. We keep doping. Make sure it's all nice. The whole surface is nice and wet. You don't want dope standing on it. You know, you don't want to see rivers going across, but you want it wet. And same thing. Use your fingers. Get it down and into there. You'll probably notice you're squeegeeing water and dope around. That's okay. That's fine. Get it pushed down in there real nice and deep and good and hard. More careful you are here, the easier life is going to be further on down the road when we're going through, we're sanding this, we're applying filler. Because we're not going to have to deal with edges or parts of the panel lifting up on us. Same thing when we spray our silver, you know, we're not going to see a whole bunch of little pinholes or lifting spots coming up. I don't know if you can catch it on the video or not, but as I'm doing this, there's a small wrinkle that's working its way out to the tip. That's what we want to see. We want this to be nice and smooth, as tight as possible, without ripping it. I mean, it is still paper. There we go. Alright, we'll go around, we'll do our edges. Start from the center out. Roll it over with your fingers. Other side. Get your edges down. There we go. Back side. And sorry if any of this is getting out of frame on you. Better setup would help that, but it's not like I do this stuff for living or anything like that. So you get what you get. Sorry. Do better next time. Make sure that's all down. And I notice we're covering up all these little holes right here. We're going to be stitching our elevator on. Planes this size and this style, I prefer using thread to put the elevator on. That's fine. Once we're done with this, you know, right before we're ready to go paint, we can still see through everything. We will clean out each one of those holes. Same thing with motor mount holes. So, and more of the same. Center out. You can also kind of wipe it, and then it lets go at the same, as soon as it's ready. It keeps it from taking off way too much. However you want to do it, doesn't much matter as long as the job gets done. As we wipe it, I think I get a little closer here. It just kind of comes off if you wipe it. What's going on here? Oh, that is off. Okay. Sorry about that, out of frame again. Alright, there's that. Then we'll go around our edges and seal it up again. Now, probably sitting there thinking to yourself, well, this looks like it's really not that complicated. Why was I freaking myself out over it? You know what? I asked myself the same question too. I sat there, I went on all the different forums, I went all over the place, and you see all these people sitting there arguing, oh no, you do it this way, oh you do it that way, blah, blah. And yeah, you start, I don't know, you fall into something a buddy of mine used to like to call paralysis by analysis. You're sitting there, you're questioning every move that you're doing, you're so concerned about what's going on. And finally, I thought about what another friend of mine likes to say when, actually I think he said his dad used to say it. You know, when you're sitting there and you hit one of those points and your product's been sitting there for a month and you're just freaking yourself out over the next step, and it's got to get done. Well, his whole theory on what to do during times like that is he would say, well, I guess I better go do something even if I'm doing something wrong. Because, yeah, I mean, the project's got to get done. So, I mean, even if you're doing something wrong, you figure out you're doing something wrong. That's the important part. And then usually by figuring out the wrong way to do it, you accidentally wind up at the right way to do it, or at least a way that the job still comes out right. It might not be the way everyone else does it, but the job still comes out right in the end. And as long as it comes out right, that's all that matters. Okay, so we got this side done. We'll spritz this half with a little more water. Again, that even though there's lacquer on this, and lacquer, it does kind of fuel proof or waterproof this as well. It's also got the water, it a little gets through and still expands out a little bit for us. Because again, we want to control this shrinkage. Spread some more dope on this. I'm really liking these brushes so far. Like I said in the other video, the Chalk Talk video, and sorry if that one got kind of boring and you were hoping to see covering going on, but understanding why we're doing all of this, I think, is just as important as knowing how to do something. Some people say that understanding is not requisite for compliance, and well, I suppose there are definite cases where that is the case. But for something like this, I think it's absolutely required to know what's going on before you even attempt to start doing it. But trial by error and learning by fire, right? Some guys work best like that. I've had jobs where it was sink or swim, and either you succeed or you don't. Luckily, I've succeeded way more than I've not. We got that wet, lining up, making sure there's stuff all over the place for us to trim out. More of the same. Put on more dope, center out. And some of you might notice, yeah, I leave the date stamps on in the bottom corner. Well, I do that more for my own thing, I don't know. A lot of younger people may not remember, you know, having mount boxes just filled with family photographs in the closet that your mom or your grandma or your dad or whoever. It's like, man, one day I'm going to get around to going through and organizing these. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they stop because they're like, oh man, what year did this happen in? Or who was that? This or that, blah, blah, blah. All those kind of things. Well, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll be rich and famous. I can look back on it and be like, man, I remember that day sitting there at my kitchen counter, exactly, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you what happened. Not that we're going to forget anyways, because this whole coronavirus deal going on, but I'm sure everyone will remember that for a good long time to come. But hey, because of that whole stay-at-home and quarantine lockdown, or whatever you want to call it, you can sit at home and watch videos of this. Learn a skill. Do something. I'm learning to use YouTube, and The Chalk Talk video is a massive file. I forget exactly what size it was, but it took hours to upload. I started last night. And I was like, alright, well, I guess this is running while I go to bed. It is what it is. I woke up this morning and it said processing, 99% complete. Cool. I hit the next step. And then all of a sudden it errors out and says, hey, you're not a verified account. You gotta verify your account first and then you can post this video because it's longer than 15 minutes. Alright, whatever. Went through, I verified it, I go back, it locks it out. Well, I should say locks it out. It just says error, couldn't process, or could not post or publish, whatever YouTube calls it. So I'm re-uploading it now, and it's taking hours. But I'm verified now, so it should work good and should be a one-shot deal. More of the same, we're gonna brush this on the edges. It looks like we're a little bit light on the top over here. I don't want that coming up on me. Roll the edge over, nice and tight. If it rips while you're doing this, well, hopefully it's ripping out here on this edge while it does that. If it rips up higher, it is what it is. Just take one of your little scrap pieces from before, put it over the top, and dope over it once you're done. Trim it out, and then take care of any little rips or snags that may have happened while you're doing this part. I like to say, work the problem. Don't sit there, get mad, and freak out, and then throw parts across the room and shut off the lights and go drink a cup of coffee or whatever. Just slow down, analyze it, work the problem. Usually they're not as bad as what they look like at first. Usually. Sometimes, yeah, they're pretty bad and you get sick of it and you don't even want to look at it anymore. That happened to me a few times over the last winter, not this winter, last winter, building a Brodak Gypsy kit. I just got so sick of that thing a few times. Not for errors in the Brodak kit. They build good kits. So it was a matter of me trying to outsmart myself, and I just wind up getting around in circles. Keep it simple. There's no black magic involved in any of this. A lot of people sit there and overthink it and blah 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 blah. And man, at the end of the day, it's just it's complicated as you want to make it. And at the most fundamental level, like what we're doing here, it's not hard. Remember, a lot of these kits came out in, 40s, 50s, 60s, things like that. 10-year-old kids were building this stuff, and then going out and screwing around with their buddies. So if a 10-year-old kid can do it and not really know what he's doing, what's stopping you from giving it a shot? Make sense? Because even at the end of the day, you tried. That's all that really matters. You can say that you did it, and what's even better is if you learned while you were doing it, make the next one better. It's simple as that. Enjoy the one you got, fly the wings off of it, plow it into the ground a few times, and when it finally gets to the point where it's more glue than it is wood, build another one. Then take everything you learned from making this one, apply it to this one, and you go to fly that second one, it'll be orders of magnitude better. You'll be saying, wow, man, it turns so much nicer, it does this, it does that, and it's all from stuff that we learned right here. A lot of people have forgotten what it was like to start out in this hobby. A lot. And sometimes it's frustrating talking with these people because they expect you to just kind of be there. They've been doing this since they were 10 years old, and now they're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, some guys in their 80s, and it's like, well, dude, you've got 70 years on top of me doing this, And unfortunately, there's people like that in every crowd. There's some people, some of those old timers that are just phenomenal, and they'll work with you, they'll take you under their wing. It's really a great hobby, and it's like anything else. If you're sitting there, let's say you're getting into cars, And you find a car club, you join up with them, this, that. Let's say you got an old Model T. And you do something to your car, and then some guys, they're the guys that will drop everything and help you, not make fun of you at all. They're the guys that usually make sarcastic comments, but still drop everything and help you out. Then there are guys that are like, James, why'd you do it then? And they don't really help out. They just go, Bleh. They just tell you everything you shouldn't have done, but they don't tell you what you should have done. Personally, I fall kind of in the middle. I make jokes, this and that, but I'll help you out. I'll do what I can, and if I don't know the answer, I'll go find someone who does know the answer for you. And most of the guys are like that. They're right there in the middle. They'll crack a few jokes, but they'll sit there. And those jokes, I think they help people remember. They certainly help me remember what's going on. Try and stay away from the guys that just sit there and blah, 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 all that. You don't need that, We're still going around, trimming this off. Oh, I thought I was gonna pull something up in the middle. I was gonna show you how to fix something, but I got lucky. It didn't do it. Still working on it, almost done. Okay, and then just like we did before, well, we're gonna go around, we're gonna seal all those edges again so it melts down real nice and pretty. I like to do it one edge at a time. The dope dries pretty quick. Man, this stuff flashes off all right. All the way around the edge. Nice and tight. Again, sorry if I keep bouncing out of frame on this. There we go. Alright, now we'll coat the whole thing with dope again, just like we did with the elevator. Like I was talking about yesterday with the grain, it's always going span-wise. All right, so the direction of the grain of the paper going side to side, the silk span, sorry, not paper, even though it kind of is paper. But it's always going side to side. If we went front and back on it, well, what would happen with that? Well, you see what the grain of the wood is? The grain of the wood's going this way too. All right, so if we have the grain of the wood going this way and the grain of the tissue going this way, as it dries and pulls together, it's always going to shrink more along the span. With the grain, it'll shrink more. So if we went this way with it, if we had them at 90 degrees to each other, over time, it's going to warp on you. Always span-wise on that. And they're also, when you if you want to sit down and think about and read about building, Harry Higley books, There Are No Secrets and things like that. And there's actually old, who made them? One of the model companies released them at one point, kind of like how-to for scratch builds, and also to pick out what grains and how to arrange the grain and things like that for different structures. There are reasons behind that the grain is going side to side like this instead. Oh, what side did I work on? Working on this side. What was I saying? Oh, grain going side to side, front and back, 45s. It's good reading. It helps out. That's outside the scope of what we're going over today, but there are reasons why when you're building a model, why the grain is going the direction it is. Some of you old timers might be watching this and thinking to yourself, well, yeah, of course there's a reason for it, blah, blah. Remember, you were a beginner once too. You were a 10-year-old once too. You didn't really, I don't want to say if you knew or cared or whatever, you just want to go out and play with your plane. Remember, those new guys don't know this stuff. Help bring their knowledge up to the level where you're at. I'm an enthusiastic amateur. I don't know everything. Like I said earlier, at least for stuff like this, I know enough to be dangerous. All about helping each other out. And finally out here at the tip. Always making sure to get your edges and make sure they stay down. Take your time. Again, during each step of this, sit there and look at it. If it doesn't look right, it's probably not right. Slow down. Take a second to figure out what's going on. If you got a corner lifting up on you, what you can do is put dope right underneath the tissue and try and get it down again. That usually works. If not, you can let it dry and then put a little drop of thin CA and real quick put it down with your finger to clamp it. Whatever works for you. I gotta lose a sweatshirt. It's getting warm in here. All right, now a slightly more complicated shape. Again, take the low-hanging fruit first. Get that out of the way. Get your rhythm going. Now, why is a rudder a slightly more complicated shape? Well, instead of just one gentle curve, we've got a curve coming down. It changes directions. We're radiused over this way as well. And also, it's not a big deal. I promise, when you see me start going through this, you're like, oh, you try to make this term a monocoat and stuff, you wind up trying to fold them over the top of each other to get it to shrink. I don't know. Like, right here, this is one of those things where if you're trying to monocoat, I can't do it. It's not going to happen. I've tried a few times, and man, it's just a disaster every time I go through it. So again, put it on. Grain going span-wise on it. What am I doing here? All right. Put that there. Put that there. All right. Same thing. Dope. Use old towels when you're doing this. Don't use your new towels, of course, because you're never going to get all the dope out of them. And if you do live with someone, you have a partner or something like that, and man, they're not going to be pleased with you using the good linens for this. So save the fight. Relax the tissue. Dry it out. Tried not to make a mess. That didn't work. go. All right, and then same thing, dope it down. I know it sounds like I'm repeating myself a lot, but you know, it's really those simple steps. First thing is get the dope woken up a little bit. Oh, this one will be good. We got lots of wrinkles in here. Good deal. All right. Get the dope to wake up a little bit, and then get the tissue wet, and then go to town. All right. All right, you see all these wrinkles in here? All right. Center out. If you got to, you can lift it up and lay it down a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. Smooth it out. You can tug on this stuff pretty good. It's not going to hurt it. Again, if you rip it, we can make a little tiny patch and put it over the top. It'll melt right in. Rip the corners of your patch. Don't just cut it out with a pair of scissors, because it's those little flaky ends that make it melt in and make hiding a mistake so much easier. You can also give it a little bit of a push. You know, you're not going to crinkle it up and send it out in the middle of nowhere, rip it in the middle of the sheet. Well, you can. I mean, I've done that before. Just be firm, but judicious with your application. Oop. Piece of my towel is underneath the covering. You can lift it up. No biggie. There we go. That's better. Put down a little bit more dope to lay it down again. Whoops. There we go. There we go. Oh, nice and pretty. Oh, there we go. And you see how there's no wrinkles in that? All right. So now, we know it's right here through this reverse curve. It's a little hard. It's not going to want to turn that edge. No problem. Easy fix. Take your razor blade. Just give yourself a couple little slits in it, relieve the pressure. And we'll see what happens. Alright, so just like we did before. Oop, came up on the tip. There we go. Make sure that stays down. Now just go around our edges. Roll your edge just like we were before. That tip does not want to cooperate. We'll make it cooperate. Roll your edge. There we go. More better. There we go. Alright. Go down your back edge. Now, in this case, we do not need to tissue the bottom because it's going to get glued down on top of everything. So you don't have to freak out and worry about that. That edge can just stay where it is. Or you can roll it over. It doesn't matter. I suppose I'll roll this one over just so you see it. But wait, this is a glue surface. Why are we covering a glue surface like this? Well, yeah, it is a glue surface. However, depending how you attach it, what adhesive you use, remember, lacquer thinner is pretty much things like acetone, all those, and those are all components inside of CA glue. It'll sit there, it'll melt through it, and also wick through it. And there you go. You don't have to worry about it. If you're using epoxy can bond dissimilar materials anyways, and a certain amount will still go through and absorb because it has its own thinners built into it. It'll still go through and grab onto it. If you want, you can trim a hole right down the middle like you do it with an ARF and glue it on that way. It's really up to you. Sandpaper right here. Okay. Trim it off. And sorry if I'm going out of frame at all. Hardly a professional at doing this. Taking a break in the middle of a part is not ideal, again, because of that warp situation that we were talking about. If you want to take a break, go ahead, but try and get both sides of whatever component you're working on done first, and it can be drying while you're taking your break. Be efficient. That kind of sounded like a fork there a little bit. Be efficient. Resistance is futile. Cool, all right. Then like we did on all the other pieces, a quick little coat around the edges. Make sure it's down all the way. Little spot there. All about keeping the edges down. Your life will be so much easier if you take care of it now instead of down the road. At the field is the wrong time to be fixing an edge gap problem or an edge lifting problem. Okay, we'll do the other side. What am I doing here? That goes up there, this goes down here. All right. Wake up the dough. Okay. Get the tissue wet. Sound effects like that, of course, always help your build, makes them turn out better. A nice little pro tip for you. Don't be afraid of making noise and talking to yourself, because sometimes you need an expert opinion. corner here is misbehaving on us. Which side are you on? You're on this side. There we go. Right up. All right, and we'll get it on. So we get this to behave a little bit better than the first side. There we go. Wunderbar. All right. Same thing, center out. Now, very, very small wrinkles will work their own way out as this dries and everything shrinks back to where it belongs. Larger wrinkles, you're definitely going to want to get them out by hand. And also later on, if you sand through a wrinkle that you never caught before, no biggie. Just bridge it over with some dope, it'll be fine. And just like before, we're pulling it tight. Trying to work everything out. There we go, that looks good. Make sure it's glued down. A couple dry looking spots. I know I was talking about keeping the dope coats even. At this point, it's admittedly tricky to do because sometimes you need to go over them again the top like this, but I would think that it averages out because the other side looked nice and wet while I was working on it. This side didn't look nice and wet, and it's looking a lot better now, so I'm going to assume there's the same amount of dope on it. You aren't trying to measure we're not putting the space shuttle in orbit here. Sorry, the SLS. It's just a model airplane after all. High performance model airplane, but still a model airplane. Just like we did before, we'll take a couple of slits through here and relieve that pressure a little bit. Make it turn the corner. Maybe this is what I'm doing wrong with monocoat, the way I relieve this through here. Maybe you're not supposed to do that with monocoat, but how to get it to turn that kind of edge, beyond me. Well, when you guys watching this, if you're good with monocoat, you want to make a monocoat video, do it. Cover one of these and tell me how you do it. Make it look pretty, then I'll give it a shot. Maybe I'll even record it so y'all can laugh at me while I'm doing it. Oh, look at this chump. He has no idea what he's doing. Well, I rarely know what I'm doing. Keep your nose in the stone, you find a solution to the problem somehow. Or, like me and monocoat, you kind of give up. It is what it is, but I can say I tried. Not everyone's a ballet dancer, not everyone's a NASCAR driver, not everyone's a Formula One mechanic. I'm completely content with being a tissue and dope guy. I like the smell, I like the end product. So I have no worries about any of that. Rolling our edges, making sure they're nice and tight. Coming over here, we're going to roll the back side. There we go. Put that over the edge. The tip on Flight Streak can get a little tricky sometimes. It likes to bunch up or something like that. Let's take your time. Just work the problem. I'm not going to worry about folding over the back. We already got it on the other side. And that's a glue surface anyways. We're going to run fillets down either side. You'll never see it. So we trim it up. Start down here. Okay, come up the back. There we go. There we go. All right. Seal your edge. Hey, Lucy. Kind of. Sorry, guys. My dog's hanging out with me. Lucy. Hey. Knock it off. Oh yeah, oh that feels nice. Good deal. Seal up the bottom. There we go. All right, there's it. Another coat of dope over the whole thing. And just fix any little issues as you find them. It's a lot easier to fix a lot of tiny issues early on than to fix a whole bunch of major issues later on. You're just saving work for yourself down the road. But if you like to do needless work, ignore them. Go ahead, fix it later. I'm not here to tell you how to build your stuff. I'm just here to show you how I do mine. Again, you can use light source. Can I get that to see? I can get that to candle a little bit. You want the whole thing to be nice and wet. Try and get the tip. Not working. Yeah, it's because I need some more material there. See, that's the whole point of candling. Figure out where you're a little wet and you're a little dry. There we go. Set this off to the side. I got stuff all over the place here. Now, like I said, before we start next piece, we want to take a break. Take a break. I'm going to take a break. I'll be right back. All right, break time's over. All right. Back to what we were doing. Pretty simple looking part, huh? Well, it is. you know, we're just going to go through as we're doing it, and we just trim out the edges, all that. And actually, I mean, this is hidden behind the fuel tank anyways. This is an adjustable tank mount, so you can raise and lower your motor a little bit. That's why it's slotted out. You look at on the fuselage, you know, mounts here, right on the side, right behind the motor. Gives you some amount of adjustment, so you get the same upright and inverted runs on your motor. That's the point of that. Piece of tissue, the part. Use a smaller brush. Oh, nice smaller brush. Might be out of commission for a moment. Let's see. Again, with dope being lacquer, it'll always soften back up, so if your brushes get hard, dip them a little bit. There we go. Getting them to wake up. Brush your dope on. Get your edges. Bigger brush might be easier for this. We'll get to that in a moment. So do we really need to tissue this? No, probably not. But it doesn't hurt. Because remember, we've already pretty much created a fuel-proof seal earlier on. You know, when we were building up those lower coats from the video, yesterday's video when that was all explained. Should already be ready to go. But we want this to look nice and pretty like the rest of the plane too. So even when you take the fuel tank off, it still looks good. Not absolutely required, however. Tissue there. Lay it on. We use a bigger brush. It seemed like it might be a better idea. Stick it down. Work your wrinkles out, center out. Rub it down and in there, get it good and stuck. Make sure your wrinkles are out. Make some relief cuts in here. Oh, how do I want to do this? We'll go like this. Let's go up. And up, and we'll use the other side to get the inside edges. Go through all the way. There we go. All right. All your edges stuck. And I'm sure there's people who are going to say, oh, you're not doing it right, you should be doing it like this or whatever. Again, as long as the job comes out looking okay, you didn't add a ton of weight to your plane, in my book, you're good. Trying to be conscious of not going out of frame for you guys, and I'm sorry if that's happening a lot. Alright, that's all down and pressed good. Trim it off. Sorry, going on a frame. This is made out of ply. You can be a little more aggressive with it when you're sanding. And go around all your edges, make sure everything gets stuck down. We'll trim out the holes later on. We're not going to worry about them right now. Push it all down, make sure it's down good and tight. All your edges. You really don't want to deal with lifting edges. It will always lift at the worst time. So try and keep that from happening ahead of time. There we go, that looks good. I don't think those should be going anywhere. I don't think I might. There we go. Don't be afraid to run your fingers around and try and make an edge lift. Again, fix it now. It's easy to fix it now. Not so easy to do it later on. There we go. That will do. All right. Now we do it to the other side. A little more complicated of shape on the other side because it's relieved. See the way? This is the front side. Back side's relieved. No worries. Brush it all on. Get it wet. Whoops. Your piece of tissue. Water bottle. Dry it up. Man, I really wish YouTube wouldn't can videos for copyright infringements. I really like to listen to music. Maybe next time I'll have some headphones on or something while I'm doing this. Lay it down. A little more challenging since it's relieved in the middle. And again, that's why we always work from the center out. Go. Push it down, make sure it's all in there. This side, if I can find my razor blade. Where did I put my razor blade? There it is. So I already made sure this inside edge was covered, so I want to make sure these other inside edges are covered, so we got a cut going the other way. We'll cut it once going up the middle. That, and then we'll come in from the sides. There we go. There's that. Here's that. And that. There we go. Fingers can get all full of dope and stuff. It's when you know you're working. It's good stuff. Almost kind of feels like you ever, Elmer's glue and things like that. Or when you were a kid, I would take it, put it over the back of your hand, then peel it off. It's the same kind of thing. And kind of like reliving part of your childhood a little bit working on this stuff. I'm not overly concerned if there's any wrinkles or puckers or anything on this little guy, because again, it's just along for the ride, and we'll still get it looking pretty enough for the purpose that it serves. Sandpaper. Sorry, I'm getting out of frame, trying not to. Kind of hunched over this countertop and smarts after a while. I'm gonna go around all the edges. Try and smooth it all out. Again, we can fix a lot of any little errors on this later. It'll still look fine. We'll go over how to fix them when we get to that point. And the edge of this looks a little wonky. Nice thing about dope is that you can hide a lot of sins as it all just kind of melts together. That's why we're using sandpaper to trim all this, and we're not using razor blades to trim it. It's that rough edge is what helps hide everything going on. Nasty there. Oh, I really kind of hacked this one together. That's alright. And then coat of dope over the whole thing again. Just like the other parts. Don't be afraid of dope on the edges. We go. Tank mount, done. Something to put in it right there. Works. Whoops. As I said, a little area there, just lift it up and I try to take my finger off it. Whatever. It is what it is. Fix it. There we go. All fixed. Okay. Last one. Well, we got the fuselage and then we're going to do the wing. Hey, really not that scary, isn't it? Actually, you know what? Let me, I got the lacquer on your fingers. It'll melt off, it'll go away as we do this, but, you know, there are times when you're sitting there trying to work a corner, you can't tell if it's dope on your finger or if it's actually a bad spot on the corner. 1 second, let me clean this up. Alright, so much better, alright. Do the fuselage now again. Oh, it feels pretty good. I think we can live with how that feels. So, more of the same. The fuselages do provide certain amount of challenges. Yeah, I mean, of course it's flat, but of course you have your doublers. We're going to have to deal with this little turn down here. Got a lot of curves going up around the canopy. We don't have to worry about in here. This is just getting cut out anyway, so don't worry about it. You got radii at the back. It's a lot wider than other pieces, which when you try to turn a radius like we did on the tail pieces, you're only going a 1/16 of an inch long, so there's not a lot of room for any little puckers to kind of show up as you go around a turn. Like if you ever seen a metal stamping or things like that, after you've turned a radius like this, you know, out here on the sheet there's puckers all over the place on it. Well, that's because it's far enough out in space that happened, and the mold pushed all that material, or I'm sorry, the die pushed all of that material out that way. We can kind of do that with tissue. You know, we can stretch it, move it around a little bit. It is still paper. Will rip if you ask too much out of it, especially the light stuff. Although the light stuff turns edges better than the thicker stuff. We'll really see that on the wingtips. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to make the wingtips, or I'm sorry, everything one sheet across each panel of the wing, or if I'm going to do the wingtips out of lightweight stuff so it turns and makes them look real nice, especially up in the front corner on a Flight Streak wing. I'll show you that in a little bit. Just because it's curving down from the top like this, but it's also spinning around there, so there's a lot of extra material there when you're trying to cover that can make little tiny puckers inside of that, and it's a challenging spot. It's not an impossible spot, but it's a challenging spot. Again, that's why we started with the simpler pieces first. Get your groove going, get things figured out. All right, this is how my dope is behaving today, because again, it's a thinned product. Different temperature, different humidity, it's going to behave differently on a 50-degree dry day as opposed to a 90-degree hot day, or soaking wet humid day. You want to work with it and figure out what's going on. That's why you start with the simpler pieces first. You get your groove going, and then everything else just kind of goes. It's no big deal. So there's a few ways you can do fuselages. It's still all the same, but it's a matter of whether you want to break things up. You know, we could dope just the backside, lay the tissue down over the top of it, and then we can dope the front side. Continue laying the tissue down, working on it. You can try and do the whole thing at once. You can cut out a piece just for the front edge. You could cut a piece to do just the canopy. You could cut a piece of it, but then you wind up with layers all over the place. And when you go to finish it, well, the paper still has a certain thickness to it, and you want to feather that out over a large area so you don't see them and you don't feel them, but you also don't want the added weight from it as well, because if we imagine our picture from the video yesterday where we had each layer building up in succession, really what you do, like, I mean, if you imagine this, I get a good angle on this. All right, say this is our one piece of tissue is laid over the top of this piece. Well, we got to feather this down with dope all the way down through there so that you can't feel it or really can't see it. Now, you're only talking about a few thousandths of an inch as opposed to an eighth of an inch like this, but it's still the same principle. The same principle applies. You're going to have stuff laid out that isn't doing anything other than trying to hide a seam. Well, we don't want to hide seams. If we do need to hide a seam, we want to put it somewhere that we're already planning on doing something else anyways, like applying a filler. Depending how nice these edges turn out as we dope, these may or may not get filler inside of them. They probably will, because, you know, just we want a really nice, tight, pretty radius. I did a pretty good job, you know, feathering all this out anyways. I was really careful with the glue application. You know, I don't see a lot of epoxy boogers sticking up and out of there. And actually, there's a manual that I wrote for the assembly on this as well. Again, for the vintage performance guys. So if you buy one of these, you can read the manual as you're building it. I tried to make it as step by step as possible, and even all little kind of tricks to help out as you're assembling it. And yeah, I'm sure the manual is quite similar to these videos where you'll just hear me rambling on and on and on. as you're reading this manual, but there's also pictures with it every step of the way, showing you all the little tiny things that I did to make life easier in the long run. It seems like you're making a lot of work in the beginning. Well, the whole thing's a lot of work to begin with. It's not hard work, it's just a lot of work. But if you eat a lot of it on the front end, you make the tail end a lot easier. And overall, the amount of work that you put into it is less than if you just hobcobbed it together and then try to put the thing together and then you're trying to sand out epoxy buggers inside the window. Just take your time, make each step look nice and pretty, because if all of the before steps are nice and pretty, it makes all the later steps, this right here what we're doing, the finishing operations, it makes them so much easier, and also makes it lighter because you're not trying to fill in errors that you made earlier on. So anyways, sorry. Back to what we were doing. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to do it 1/2 at a time. I'm going to dope from about here back. I'll still wet the whole piece of tissue, but then lay it on, make sure it's down. I'll dope the front half, lay the tissue down, and take care of all the edges. We'll do all the edge work, and then we'll trim it. All right? And this wood is a lot beefier than the other pieces we were working on. You know, this is supposed to a tiny little piece of 16th. We got nice big piece of work with here. So, and this is also put together between the two sheets. This fuse is made out of 2 sheets. The 2 sheets are also put together with epoxy too. I mean, this thing, it's not going anywhere. We got this. We got our tissue. Double check that it looks right. Extra little pieces of paper out of here. And for me talking, flapping my gums has gotten a little stiff. That's alright. I just put some dope in it, work it through, it'll soften right back up. There we go. That'll work. Okay. We're waking up the dope. I'm not worried about doping where the elevator would go right here. I'm going to leave that surface bare. Try and let the epoxy I'm going to use to put the tail on get down inside the wood as deep as possible. I know what I said earlier. However, the elevator sees a whole lot more abuse than the rudder does. Of course, it's always open for arguments, but it makes me sleep better at night. And it's my plane. Build your plane the way you want to build your plane. I've built them like this, and I know that it works just fine. Alright, so that's on there. Jump there. Get the tissue wet. If we have to, we can re-wet the front side before we get ready to dope it down. Lay it on. Make sure you're giving yourself the room that you need to work. There, that should work. Okay. Center out. I don't like that, so let's lift it up. That's better. You kind of gotta fan it out like this. You can't just go out and out, because then you still have this dimension you need to worry about. Just kind of fan it out. Your wrinkles will go away. Usually, I got a little wrinkle down in the back. Lift it up a little and pull on it. There we go. Beautiful. All right. Push it down, get everything out to the edges. If you know a better way of doing this, let me know. That's the only way I really found it works, to use your hands and just push everything out. And like I said, we're not really too concerned about the edges right now. We're concerned about getting this down onto the surface. I did that front half, now we'll work on the back half. A little bit different than what we were doing before, but that's just because we've got a bigger surface to work on, so we gotta break this down into little chunks that are easier to manage. Yeah. Hey. Again, sorry about Lucy. Luce, hey! Enough out of you. Nobody wants to hear it, trust me. She doesn't listen very good. Well, I shouldn't say that. She's a good dog. Pain in the butt, but she's a good dog. Alright, we lay it down. The tissue is still damp. We don't have to worry about re-wetting it. Now we're just going to sneak up on the more troublesome areas, which is going to be, namely, those doublers. Okay, there's that. Coming up nicely. Nice and easy. Trying to keep the wrinkles out of it. Try and try and try. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If we, this might work better if we do it like this. We're gonna cut it. We're gonna wuss out. Just cut it going down there. Like I said, we're gonna be putting filler in here probably anyways. There we go. Coming up through here. Get the wrinkles out. Push the dope down through the tissue. Make your best efforts to always push in the same direction so you're not dragging these all over the place and you're actually stretching it out rather than bunching it up in a spot where maybe you don't want to bunch it up. If you have to, lift it, move it around a little. See, the tissue's getting a little dry, just re-spritz it if you have to. It's not going to hurt anything. Don't dip it in your bathtub, of course, but don't be afraid to spritz it. If it needs it, it needs it. It is what it is. It'll evaporate out through the dope. Hopefully this is showing up on the video good enough that you can see how I'm pushing the wrinkles out. I know what I just said about always pushing in one direction. There are always exceptions to rules. Don't be afraid to tug on it if you have to. Whoops. And this is definitely one, even though it's a little flat piece, sometimes the simplest pieces wind up giving you the most grief. But again, if we got small wrinkles, it's not the end of the world. We can sand them out later. Most of the time, those kind of lay down on themselves after a sanding. But you still want this thing to be nice and pretty. I'll just work the problem. And that'll probably be good enough. We can work with what we got there. Okay. So now we're going to go around, we're going to do the edges. Just like we did before. Make a little slit where it needs it on these reverse curves, just to make it turn a little easier. And let's see what happens. Even though we already woke it up a little, it's been sitting, so I'll wake it up again. Whoops. Just working down underneath the tissue. Sometimes it looks like I might have a clue as to what I'm doing. But I'm one of those guys that I tend to have moments of brilliance completely followed up by just hours and hours and hours of pure stupidity. Happens to the best of us. Do this, get this to turn the edge. See this big goober up here? That's alright, we'll take care of that as we're doing the other side. I am not overly concerned about it at the moment. More concerned about a couple of these little wrinkles. There we go. You're going to take some pressure out of it. Try not to stab your finger. I'll head up against the light, looking for him. I think I got him. It looks like the nose of this might give us a little lip up here too. I am not on this going to be concerned about, concentrate for a second here. Getting rid of material, helping it do its thing. I have to get rid of a little, give it some room here. I'm not going to be concerned about tissuing inside the motor mounts. And what I'm going to do right before we're ready to spray this thing, I'm going to seal all. I'm sorry, I was completely out of frame for that whole thing. Went through and made a couple of relief cuts. Inside the motor mount area, oh, that would have been bad. I'm going to seal the whole thing with epoxy, keep fuel and oil from getting into the wood. Same thing we just did. Do it on the top. Pulling it nice and tight. Try and get the wrinkles out. There we go. That'll do. All right. Come up over to the top. Wake it up a little bit underneath. Pull it over. And we're just working it. Try and pull all those wrinkles out. Small ones we can deal with later on. You want to get rid of the big ones. Some guys are really good at this. They can turn these canopies and all these edges without ever getting a wrinkle in them. I'm not that good. And no problems admitting that I'm not that good. I just unfortunately have to eat it and then fix it later on to make more work for myself until I figure out a foolproof way of getting rid of that. There we go. That should be good and stuck. And we'll run down to tail now. Pull it as tight as you can. I probably should have made these pieces a little bit bigger, would have made life easier on myself. Josh. Oh, I think we can work with that. A couple of big wrinkles in there. I don't know if there's anything I'm really going to have to do. I can do with them. Might have to fix them in a later step. Which isn't the worst thing in the world, because I can see how to fix stuff like that. So I'm not too concerned about it. Alright, trim it. Sandpaper. Where did I put it? Nah, there it is. Same thing we did before. Try and stay in frame for you guys. Get out of there. There we go. Nope. A couple of wrinkles on the back. That's okay. We'll take care of them later. Make sure this elevator area is nice and cleaned out. What are you hanging up on? There we go. There we go. Sorry if you want out of frame, I'm trying not to. I know I keep saying that, and you're thinking, well, he should just move his camera. Well, yeah, probably, but sorry, I'm in the middle of something. There we go. All right, well, that's trimmed off. Same thing as before. We're going to go around the edges, make sure we get them all pressed down. Ooh. The other nice thing about making this lap is lets you see small little boo-boos. Alright. That. I think I got those wrinkles out. Awesome. Never hurts to be your own cheering gallery either. Maybe I didn't. Oh well. Deal with them later. Wrinkles on the top. Yeah, that's all right. We'll deal with it all later. Get this cut out of the wing. Go. And a little bit out here. Voila. Now, I know I said always sand these. However, this isn't exactly an exposed edge in here. We need to epoxy the wing in after we get all this done before we're ready to spray, and also put in a little bit of superfill or something like that for, I see a little there, for making fillets. So, not a huge deal. You do want to make sure that you at least seal it down, though. There we go. Same thing, just run your hands inside, make sure you stick it down. There we go. Alright, cool. Good deal. Side one done. Side two. After we get some mess out of the way, of course. It helps to stay at least some resemblance of neat. Try your best. Everyone knows that when you're working, it turns into a disaster area, except for your boss. Your boss doesn't like that answer. Okie dokie. And then I think I was smart enough and made enough room on it. If not, I might need to run just a tiny little strip along the bottom or along the top. Not a big deal. I'll show you how to do that if we have to do it. We're going to do it the same way. Going to do half, something I'm going to start up on this half. Maybe this make my life a little easier if I start up here, since this was the tough part. I didn't have much choice on what to do with my material. Well, we'll start up here. We'll see if that works any better. Probably still gonna have to trim it at the bottom. That's okay. This over here, drop it down. Okay. Morto. Center out. And I think we're still gonna have to trim that. That's okay. That's all right. Saw that. Let's try this. Slice it out. Let's see how well this works. Looks like that might work pretty good. We might be in business. Get rid of this. I probably should have waited to do that. Oh well. There's no mistake big enough that you can't fix it. That actually didn't work out too bad. Yep, definitely should have waited to do that. That's alright. Who doesn't like making life more difficult on themselves than it needs to be, right? That's why we're aero modelers. We love making life difficult. Feels like I got something under the tissue. What's under there? Ah, stray pieces of tissue are under the tissue. Don't think there's much I can do about that now. I'll have to deal with it later and show you guys how to handle that. Not setting out with these videos to make any illusion that I do everything perfectly the first time or anything like that, that everything just poof, it's magic, it works. No. Things happen while you cover. It is what it is. Just don't freak out about them and just work the problem. One of my favorite sayings, work the problem. Tissue's getting a little dry, but I'm not too concerned about it. More concerned about it than I lead on. There we go. Okay, I feel better now. Don't be afraid of the water. Use it if you have to. You're not going to hurt anything. But I'm thinking this is kind of a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other cases. I don't really think starting in the front got me anything. But you don't know until you try. We tried, and now we know. Try to get these wrinkles out. And center out and fan it out. There we go. That's looking better. You can also tug on it. That works good too. At least it kind of starts putting everything where it belongs. good and stuck down. There's wrinkles up here. Stretch those out. There we go. Hell yeah. Oh yeah. Dope building up on my fingers, feeling this a little difficult. That looks pretty freaking good. All right. Do the edges. Slit there through the reverse curve. Make a couple of slits up here. Maybe we can get this to lay down a little nicer than the other side did. And we'll see what happens. Over the top. There we go. Down the back. Got a little spot right there. We're not worried about that right now. Yeah, we'll probably want to maybe put some filler in there anyways to feather that out, make it look super cool. Do 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 do. Try not put your fingers up through the wing hole. I know it's tempting, but even with that relieved, you might still pull stuff up. I leave it to the very end to trim it. I suppose you could trim it on earlier, but once I got dope going, I like to keep it going and not start, stop, start, stop. Couple little wrinkles starting back here. Try and get them out. See if we can turn this edge halfway respectively. Relief cuts help. I should probably put some in this, but actually not that bad. Those will sit. Any of these little wrinkles will just sand right out, and we'll just put dope over the top of them. No big deal. Alright, let's trim most of this off. I know what I just said, but we're going to trim most of this stuff off just so it's out of the way, you know, the big dingleberries, and then we'll finish up the nose. is this? What did I do there? Look at this piece, trying to figure out how that all managed to go out all wonky. Whatever. Throw it off. I'll figure out something else to do with that if we see an issue later on. A lot of this is fly by the seat of your pants and common sense. Lucy is usually underneath my feet while I'm doing stuff like this, trying to eat all these old pieces that come off for sawdust and all that. If you do have pets, this isn't the best stuff for them to be eating, so keep it away from them. I doubt a little bit would hurt, especially in a dried state, but if you wouldn't eat it, why would you give it to your pet, you know? And a little bit lifted up in the back. There we go. That's back now. I can't tell if it lifted anymore. Clean up around the canopy. The other thing to keep in mind is if you have to have a nasty booger somewhere on this, hopefully you'll wind up with that nasty booger on the inside of the plane rather than the outside. Why is that? Well, everyone sees the outside of the plane as you're flying. Yeah, of course they can see this when you're in the pits and stuff like that. But as you're flying, people only see the outside. So all the cool stuff, you know, make sure it looks good on the outside. My own personal opinion. If you have a choice, make any glaring errors on the side of the plane that nobody's really going to be paying attention to while you're up in the air and they're just passing by. Get that to smooth out. I never finished taking care of that. All right, button up the nose. Again, we get little wrinkles in this. It's not the end of the world. I'll show you guys how to go through and take care of that when we hit that part. You don't want big wrinkles. You don't want to make a mess of your work right now. If you get a couple little wrinkles, it's not the end of the world. I really hope I don't wind up out of frame for most of this video. I'm trying to do my best here. You see this big nasty booger here? I mean, it's good enough for now. We'll get it cleaned up. What did I do there? What is that? Ah, piece that I missed. This has got to come off. There we go. That's better. More better. There we go. All right. Go around the edges. I missed a big spot? Nope, don't think so. All right. Thought I missed a big spot in the tray. Now watch, when it dries out, I actually did. And then you'll see me get all frustrated with myself. Oh man, TJ, what are you doing, man? You're killing yourself. You're making so much work, blah, 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 blah. It happens. Again, you learn from it. As long as you learn from it, not a damn thing wrong. Just do better on the next one. And I work for a machine tool company, an OEM, and I work in a support capacity now. I have worked in applications, things like that, but I work in a support capacity now for some of our software. But when I was training people on how to do stuff, be it a customer or even our own internal guys, when you keep getting asked the same question over and over and over again, the first time you don't mind answering a question. It is what it is. Everybody has questions, and there's no such thing as a stupid question. Well, all right. Well, we won't go down that road. But there's no such thing as a stupid question. And then they ask you again a second time, the same question. Exact same question. Especially when there's examples in a manual. Oh, man. Read RTFM. Read the freaking manual. But so you help them out that second time. That goes the third time. It's like, dude, all right, write this down this time. Please, write it down. A fourth time happens. And this goes on and on. Some people are more patient than others, and you help them out, and you try to steer them the right way. But I would say 99% of people aren't going to mind helping you out the first time. Even the second time. Third time, you're starting to get a little iffy probably, and they're probably going to start getting grouchy with you. Take notes. Or do it via email so you can print it out and respond back to it, and keep it in a file folder somewhere. Just retain information. Learn how to learn and retain. Learn how to teach yourself new skills like this. You got this video to refer back to. There's no black magic. You're seeing this all in real time. You're hearing and listening to me talk to myself and this and that. I haven't done anything off video other than trimming the parts out. Granted, I put the base coats of dope on this and all that, and we told you in the video, or told you in yesterday's video why we do that. But just keep stuff around. Make your own little reference library. Remember, relearn how to teach yourself stuff. When you had homework when you were in school, that was because you were supposed to teach yourself how to extrapolate from some data. With this, I'm giving you enough to be dangerous. It'll be good enough to be dangerous. And you'll have to extrapolate from it a little bit if you're working on something. Maybe you're building a full fuse. Maybe you're building a racer and you're trying to do an epoxy finish. Actually, putting the fiberglass on is very similar to what we're doing here if you're doing an epoxy type fiberglass finish. But something a lot of people have forgotten how to do is how to teach themselves stuff. I always like learning new skills, things like that. And this whole corona quarantine thing going on, it's a perfect time for you guys to be doing this. Buy yourself a kit, buy yourself some tissue. Do it. Find a guy to help you out. If you need, post questions in the comments if you have any. Of course, I'm more than willing to help out, or jump on, the Control Line Facebook page, or go on to Stunt Hanger. You can ask guys there. You can call the vendors. The vendors have no problems helping out. Try and go to your local hobby shop or give them a call. Maybe they know some Control Line guys. Even some RC guys still tissue and dope. A lot of them use Monaco. A lot of guys don't like tissue and dope on the RC side. Excuse me, but you got to learn how to expand yourself a little bit. If you want to keep just one real narrow point of view, you're never going to learn new stuff. Learn new stuff. Have fun with it. All right, anyways, I digress. I went off on a tangent. Sorry I do that. I ramble. Let's trim out this wing. we go. All right. Get that out of there. Seal these edges down. This wing edge doesn't need to be super pretty right now because we're still going to have a ton of sanding to do, and we may wind up having to open up this edge a little bit anyways. We go put the wing on it. It fits now, but after we put tissue on it, it might not fit. Alright, so got all the edges down. We already made our lap around the outside edges to make sure everything's down. One more coat of dope over the whole thing, both sides. Right. Get some of this garbage out of here. And we might see a little couple wrinkles here and there to pop up and become more evident after things dry and the tint kind of changes a little bit of it that makes them stand out more, but that's fine. We can fix it. It's not a big deal. Don't fret. I'm not a real big fan of what's going on in there. Yeah, I just did something. I made it worse or made it better. We'll find out in a little while. Through it, just, again, you don't want this dripping wet coat, but you want it wet. Now if you're getting beads of dope running off the side, you're a little too wet. Getting there. Almost. So now, like we were saying on the video yesterday, where we 3 coats on sand, 3 coats on sand, all that. I consider this what I just did 1 coat while we're putting it on. I don't consider this 2 coats, as we're going around spinning around and all that, like I really did 2 coats. Now I only need 1 more, and then I'll say no. I'll do 2 more normal coats like I normally would. It's just this first coat's, I'll say it's a little thicker than the other ones. I can candle this up against the camera. You can kind of see how it's getting glossy. There we go. You just want it nice and glossy. It'll dry out and that shine will go away. Maybe the other side's already dry a little bit. Yeah, like I said, this stuff flashes pretty quick. There you go. I mean, you want this wet, but you don't want it soaking wet. There we go. Now, we'll set this up and we move on to the wing.